There are moments when God doesn't whisper. He interrupts. He steps into the ordinary rhythm of our days and says, pay attention. Something is shifting. When God marks a day, it is never random and it is never small. It is a divine appointment circled in heaven long before we ever woke up to recognize its weight. And November 26, 2025, that is one of those days. A day God has already stepped into. A day He has already prepared. A day where heaven will rewrite something that earth thought was settled. I want you to imagine waking up that morning with the sense that something in the atmosphere feels different, like the air itself is thicker with purpose. You don't quite know what's coming, but you can tell something is moving behind the scenes. That's how God works. He doesn't always give you the full picture, but He gives you enough to know you should stay tuned. And when God highlights a day, it means He is about to reveal what has been hidden, reverse what has been broken, restore what has been stolen, and remind you that He is still God, still ruling, still directing the pages of history. I've seen moments like this in my own life. Times when I thought it was just another Tuesday, another sunrise, another ordinary day, until God stepped in and turned the ordinary into divine orchestration. One phone call, one encounter, one shift in circumstances, and everything changed. That's the kind of day God is pointing to. A day when His fingerprints will be too clear to ignore. November 26, 2025 is not about fear. It's not about panic. It's about awareness. It's about expectation. It's about tuning your heart to the frequency of heaven so you don't miss what God has already placed on His calendar. Because when God marks a day, He intends to move. And when God moves, everything connected to you begins to align with His purpose in ways you could never orchestrate by yourself. When God prepares a day, He isn't just setting a date on a calendar. He's aligning heaven and earth, shifting pieces you didn't even know were part of your story. Some of you have been praying, Lord, when will things change? When will the breakthrough show up? When will the answer come? And God is saying, I've already scheduled your moment. I've already written your turning point. I've already arranged the day when what you've been carrying in faith becomes what you're holding in your hands. That's why November 26, 2025 carries weight, because God is not reacting to circumstances, He is orchestrating them. Behind the scenes, God has been moving pieces you can't see. While you were crying, He was arranging. While you were waiting, He was aligning. While you were wondering if He heard you, He was preparing something far bigger than you asked for. God does His best work in the unseen, and when the right moment arrives, what was invisible becomes undeniable. Just like a seed underground silently breaking open, pushing against the soil, preparing for a moment of emergence. God is doing that with your life. You haven't seen it yet, but something is pushing upward. Something is about to break through the surface. And here's the truth. God never wastes preparation. Every delay has had purpose. Every closed door was protecting you. Every setback was setting you up. Every disappointment was direction. When God marks a day, He's really marking the moment when everything He's been preparing finally comes into view. You may not understand why it had to take this long, but you will understand why it couldn't happen any sooner. This is why God tells you ahead of time, because He wants you ready. He wants your faith awake, your spirit alert, your heart steady. He doesn't want you sleepwalking through the day. He planned for your breakthrough. He wants you positioned, expectant, leaning in, because when heaven releases something, you need the faith to receive it. And when God chooses a specific day, He's not just preparing the moment, He's preparing you. Sometimes the biggest battles aren't the ones happening around you. They're the ones happening inside you. And before God shifts a day, He often shifts a heart. He prepares you by confronting the doubts you've been carrying, the fears you haven't spoken out loud, and the lies the enemy has been whispering in the quiet corners of your mind. Because God knows that if He gives you a breakthrough while you still feel broken on the inside, you'll sabotage what He intended to bless. So before the moment shows up, He strengthens your spirit, He sharpens your vision, and He deepens your faith. Think back to the seasons when you were praying for change and nothing seemed to move. It wasn't because God was ignoring you. He was stabilizing you. He was building a foundation deep enough to hold the weight of what He was preparing to bring into your life. You can't put a skyscraper on weak soil, and God won't place destiny on a shaky soul. So He starts working within you, rooting out the insecurities that make you question your calling, removing the people who dilute your purpose, and healing the wounds that keep you tied to who you used to be instead of who He is forming you to become. And sometimes this inner work feels uncomfortable. Sometimes it feels like loss. Sometimes it feels like silence. Sometimes it feels like God is taking things away instead of adding things in. But in reality, He's clearing space. He's making room. He's pruning branches that no longer bear fruit so new growth can emerge. Every tear you cried in the dark was watering the soil of your future. Every lonely night was strengthening your roots. Every unanswered question was teaching you to trust Him, even when you couldn't trace Him. So when God says a day will not be normal, it's because He has done an abnormal work inside you leading up to it. He has shaped your heart to recognize His move, trained your ears to hear His voice, and renewed your mind to receive what He's been preparing all along. The change you've been waiting for is not just coming to your circumstances. It has already started in you. There are times when God brings you to a moment that doesn't just touch your life. It shifts the entire atmosphere around you. A moment when the spiritual realm becomes clearer than the physical, when you can sense something stirring that your eyes can't yet see. November 26th, 2025, carries that kind of spiritual weight. It's the type of day when heaven pushes through the veil, when God says, I'm about to expose what's been hidden, elevate what's been overlooked, and settle what's been disturbed. This is not about superstition or fear. This is about spiritual awareness. Because when God is getting ready to move, the enemy starts trembling. And you start feeling the tension between what was and what will be. There are signs when a divine shift is near. The pressure increases. The battles intensify. The enemy tries to distract you, drain you, discourage you, because he knows something is coming that he cannot stop. Whenever God is about to release something significant, warfare rises. That's why some of you have been feeling resistance you can't explain, setbacks you didn't expect, and challenges that showed up out of nowhere. It's not because you're losing. It's because you're close. The darkest part of the night always comes before dawn, and the greatest resistance comes before breakthrough. And sometimes God will let the pressure rise so you learn to lean on Him in a deeper way. He lets you feel the weight so you can witness His strength. He allows the storm so you can discover that He still commands the winds and waves. This kind of day that God marks is the kind where the battle you've been fighting suddenly shifts. Not because you fought harder, but because God stepped in. The kind of day where what intimidated you yesterday bows down today. The kind where confusion becomes clarity, fear becomes courage, and delay becomes divine acceleration. On days like this, heaven doesn't whisper, it announces. God doesn't work in the background, He moves in plain sight. And when He does, even your enemies will have to acknowledge that it wasn't luck, it wasn't coincidence, it wasn't timing, it was God. This is the kind of shift that doesn't just change a moment, it changes direction, identity, purpose, and destiny. It is the kind of day heaven has already circled and hell has already dreaded, because what God sets in motion cannot be interrupted by anything or anyone. When God marks a day, He isn't inviting you to stand still. He's calling you to rise. He's calling you to step into that moment with courage, with readiness, with a heart that refuses to shrink back. Because when heaven opens a door, hesitation can close it. God wants you prepared not just to witness His move, but to walk into it boldly. November 26, 2025 is not just a day on the calendar. It's an invitation to participate in what God is doing, to match His movement with your obedience, to align your steps with the direction He has already set in motion. There comes a point in every believer's life when God says, now it's your turn. He's brought you through preparation, through pressure, through pruning, through lessons you didn't want but needed. And now He says it's time to act. It's time to step into the room you once felt unqualified for. Time to speak words you were once afraid to say. Time to pursue the vision you kept delaying because you didn't feel ready. God doesn't give clarity so you can stay comfortable. He gives clarity so you can move. He reveals so you can respond. He calls so you can step forward. This is why faith is not passive. It's active. Faith isn't sitting back, waiting for everything to make sense. Faith is stepping even when the road ahead is only lit one step at a time. Faith is believing God's voice over your feelings, His promise over your fears, His timing over your uncertainty. And when God says a specific day will carry purpose, He expects you to posture yourself with expectation, not hesitation. He wants you listening, watching, leaning forward, ready to say, Lord, whatever you have for me on that day, I'm prepared to receive it. I'm ready to walk in it. I'm willing to move with you. Because breakthroughs don't come to the distracted. They come to the attentive. They come to the ones who are spiritually awake, emotionally steady, and mentally anchored in God's truth. The ones who say, God, I don't know exactly what you're about to do, but I trust you enough to show up for it. And when you choose to step into a moment God has already prepared, you don't just witness change, you become part of it. You become a vessel He can use, a testimony He can reveal, and a living reminder that when God marks a moment, those who walk in obedience will never walk away empty. There are moments when God doesn't just speak to your spirit. He positions you to become a signal to others, a marker, a reminder, a living testimony that when God prepares a day, that day doesn't just change you. It changes those connected to you. November 26, 2025 is the kind of moment where God not only shifts your direction, but also uses your obedience to unlock something in the people watching your life. Because you're not walking this out alone. Your breakthrough is tied to someone else's belief, someone else's courage, someone else's hope. God is raising you up as a signpost that points others back to Him. There are people who have been doubting God because they've been watching your struggle. People who lost faith because they saw your pain. People who wondered if God still moves because they saw you waiting, fighting, holding on when everything around you looked like it was falling apart. And God is about to use your turnaround to reignite their trust in Him. Some breakthroughs are personal, but some are public. Some are designed not just to lift you, but to lift the ones who have been silently leaning on your endurance. This is why the enemy has fought you so hard. He wasn't just trying to stop you. He was trying to stop the people who would be set free because of you. He knew if you ever stepped into the moment God prepared, your victory would ripple far beyond your own life. He knew your testimony would be too loud, too clear, too undeniable. He knew God's fingerprints on your breakthrough would expose His lies and dismantle His plans. That's why the warfare increased. That's why the pressure intensified. That's why the storm wouldn't let up. The enemy wasn't attacking where you were. He was attacking where God was taking you. But what he failed to understand is that when God designates a moment, no force in hell can cancel it. God has already decided that your story will speak. Your breakthrough will shine. Your transformation will inspire. You are becoming the evidence someone else has been praying for. You are becoming the proof that God is still moving, still restoring, still healing, still turning things around. And when that day arrives, the shift won't just be in your circumstances, it will be in the people watching you. They will see God through your resilience. They will feel hope rise through your change. They will believe again because of what God does in you. That is why the moment matters. That is why the day is marked. Because God isn't just writing your testimony. He's writing someone else's deliverance through it.